Hello and welcome to the May edition of the Just Cards video hop. Our challenge, or theme for this month is to use washi tape on our cards, and I came up with a couple of different examples to show you for today's video. I created a couple of different examples beforehand, and I will be recreating these for you today during the video. I will be using some different choices in paper and colors as I do so. So I'm pulling out the various washi tapes and a pattern paper pad that I'm going to be using to do my cards. So the first thing I do is trim the pattern paper to 6 by 6, and I'm going to score it about 1.5 inches from the center point. I will do a fold, and then I will trim off those ends, the little triangles in the end, and then I will go back and fold, do a score line again on about 1.5 inches from the ends, and then it will fold the opposite way. And that is forming pretty much not quite the base layer, but it'll be the top layer before the sentiment is added. And so once I have chosen the washi tape I wanted to use, which is kind of a dark gray metallic striped tape, I'm putting a line of that right down the center of the inside of that pattern paper. Then I'm going to start working on the die cut sentiment, and I'm using the same washi tape, and I will be putting down 3 different sections of that right next to each other so that I have enough coverage in order to do the shadow die cut, as you see me putting that through my small die cut machine right there. And the next thing I do is I choose one of the solid papers from the same paper pack, and actually what I ended up with was one of the ombre colored, mostly solid color pieces from the pack. I'm going to cut off a small section to die cut the word hello to go with the shadow that I've already cut. And later I will be using that same little scrap paper to cut out some additional die cut flowers. And luckily I had just enough to work off of that one piece of 6 by 6 paper. I could have been a little bit more careful at this point to make sure that I had enough room for the flowers, but it wasn't until I actually finished this part that I decided I was going to add die cut flowers as embellishment, but you'll see that it all comes together in the end. So now I'm planning the next part of this. Before I begin cutting the embellishments for this, I just glue on the die cut word to the shadow background and give that a chance to adhere so that I can go ahead and place it onto the fold of the front of the card. So right here is where I'm deciding what die cuts I want to use out of that same set in order to create some additional embellishments for the card. So I pull out a leaf in 3 different flower shapes that I'm going to create a little embellishment for to go on the top left corner and the bottom right corner. So right here I'm pulling out some double-sided tape because I'm going to adhere each side of my hello die cut to the little folded out panels on the top. And I didn't really want to completely close the front of it. I wanted it to kind of have a little bit of a gap, so I fiddled with it a bit before pressing down on the adhesive. And the next thing I will be doing, or at the end, is layering it onto that same colored cardstock. And this is a point in which I decided, oh, it would be a good idea to use that same pattern paper to cut out the little flowers. And I went back and used that same washi tape that I was using earlier to cut out the little leaves. The really cool part about these leaves is the die cut allows you to pull out the center of it, so it looks like I have 3 different shapes there. It's actually just one shape, but I left one solid, and then I pulled out the center piece, which is part of the die cut, and then used the negative from that, and it created a very interesting embellishment when I put everything together. So right here I'm poking holes into the centers of all the little die cut flowers. I was thinking I was going to use a brad or something in the center, but in the end I ended up changing my mind and not doing that after all. So I didn't really need to do that step, but you know, it's already in the video, so I just thought I'd explain what my thought process was at the time, even though it did end up changing later. So now I'm gluing together all the little pieces so I'll have a nice little embellishment to place on my card. And this Nuvo adhesive, liquid adhesive, is something I've just started to use recently, and I have to say I really, really like it. I've used Tombow monoliquid for a while, and I still like that adhesive, but one thing I do prefer about this bottle is just that it has a finer tip opening, so it makes it easier to apply a finer line of glue whenever you really want to do that. And now I'm doing one of the final steps and just gluing down my little flower and leaf embellishments and making that all fit together. And so there's the first card. On the second card, the embellishment that I'm making for it is one die cut, which will be the focal point of the card. So all the washi tape will be going on the cake, the 3-tier cake in the center of the card. So I'm using a yellow patterned washi tape for the cake tiers part, and I'm using a very, very blingy silver metallic washi tape to do the cake base, as well as the little decoration that goes on the top. I also wanted to separate the layers, and I'm using one of these solid washi tapes that's already about, I think it's 1/4 of an inch to begin with, and I wanted some smaller strips, half the length. So the first thing I did was put the tape onto some cardstock before trimming with the scissors, which made it a lot easier to cut it down to the width that I wanted. And now I'm just attaching that to the base of each of the tiers on the little cake, so that there is some separation between the 3 tiers. And for the bottom, I just take a piece off of the roll, and I'll fold a little bit of it underneath before folding it back on itself in the back. So now that the basic cake is done, I'm going to take it a step further. And what I decided to do is I wanted to use these cute little sprinkles as an embellishment, but they're too small to really adhere down directly, so my choice was to use a gloss medium. I like this particular one because it has a brush applicator. I mean, there are some different mediums on the market that could be used for the same purpose, including the Ranger Glossy accents. So once I've applied that medium on, I'm just sprinkling on some of these little tiny embellishments, the little sprinkles that are in different colors, and then I put that aside to dry. And with this medium, it takes roughly about 30 minutes. So in the meantime, I've put together my card base and a background that I had created before, and die cut the words happy birthday out of some MFT dies that I have. And the final step is just gluing down the cake and the base. So I used the same Nuvo liquid glue, so I'd have a little bit of time to fiddle with it and make sure the placement was just what I needed. And that will complete my second card. I really appreciate you stopping by today and taking a look at my 2 cards. If I've inspired you in any way, I hope you'll think about leaving me a comment, a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed yet, I'd appreciate it if you did. Thank you again.